Episode 5. Today we're covering Joe Rogan with Brigham Buhler, and we're going to cover the most recent episode, which is 2208. Sterling messaged me when this one dropped, and he was like, "We're going to have to do this one." And I had actually never listened to him, and Sterling was like, "You're going to like him." And I did like him a lot. I actually liked him enough to where I was telling Sterling that. He's like, "Well, have you listened to his other episodes?" I was like, "No." And so I went back and listened to the second time he's on Rogan, which was 2079, which we're also going to be talking about today. And I like that one a lot more.
Yeah, it was better. I had that one
So,
better too.
yeah, my rating for the second time he was on Rogan was a 92, which is my highest rating so far.
Ooh, I
And
had an
then
87. You did like it.
I did,
It was really good.
wow. Yeah, it was like the typical, which it was just second time Rogan. But to me, like when you watch movies, like the first one, like the first movie they always come out with seems to have better like character development in it and more of like they're not stretching stuff. And it's like a broader story. And then the second one, it was like more a specific storyline they're saying. It was a lot smaller storyline. It felt like the second movie. But it was
Yeah.
kind of cool because they're about a year apart and a lot of stuff has happened. And it's election year. A lot of stuff has happened.
Yeah, it
So it's
is.
cool to listen to both of them.
I had the second one as a 55. And it's like mainly because a lot of this, they talked mainly about the Senate hearing. And I watched a lot of that straight from the Senate hearing. So it was a lot of repeats for me. And I don't know. The first one, I'm going to say the second one, 2079 was like, I have a lot of podcasts and I've kind of gone off the deep end with like food that's bad for you, chemicals that are bad for you, done all that before. But I've never heard someone break down how messed up the health insurance is, the FDA is, and the DOJ is like that. It was really eye opening. I loved it. I was glad to listen back to it.
Yeah. One of the crazy things that he did such a good job of explaining in that second episode, which he talked about health insurance a lot. And it's just like car insurance. When you think about it, car insurance is there to fix your car for major damages. But if you want to keep your car running 200,000 miles, they don't care. They're not going to pay for the oil changes. They're not going to pay for the tire rotations.
Yep.
It's like that's such a good way to put into perspective what healthcare is. And
Mm-hmm.
he mentioned that he doesn't even refer to it, and I think that he said the insurances might not refer to it as health insurance anymore. They refer to it as management, health
What do you
management
call it?
insurance, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because it is kind of a deceptive name because they're not really helping you be healthy, it's
That's right.
profiting.
Right. Their motive is to treat you as cheap as possible, not to make you feel better. Yeah. The second one was great because he started off with a banger. He said there's this he was trying to set the stage for like how messed up these people are, big pharma. And he was like, he said, there's this company during World War II that asked the Nazis for 150 Jewish women. And they wrote back to him 6 months later. They said, "Thank you for sending us all those healthy women. We need 150 more because none of them made it." And that little company's named Bear. It's like, man, they didn't teach you that in school, did they?
No, man.
Just Bear aspirin. It's like, it's healthy to do for, your heart, your overall heart health. Golly. How do they have the
Yeah.
same name? How is that story a thing and they have the same name?
I mean, dude, there's so many companies out of Germany in that time that are still around. Volkswagen.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say his name, but that really bad guy who was involved in Germany at that time worked at Volkswagen.
That's crazy.
And
Yeah,
and
and
he
it's
was
like at least rebrand,
yeah,
you
man.
know? Be like, we didn't like all the things that were going on there. but we still really good at making cars. We're going to call this something not Volkswagen.
It's crazy. And yeah, it shows the roots of these companies.
Oh yeah, and they just always like his main message was that they will always choose profits over your health.
Yeah, and that's hard because like we're in a capitalistic society. So
Yeah.
like I don't know. I tend to say that capitalism is the way to go, but I wonder in healthcare if it's inevitable to end up in a situation like this.
Yeah, so it was an interesting. I forgot what podcast I was listening to. Like, first off, it's easy to. I see how you came to that thought, but it's where the government gets involved that gives these guys all this monopoly. It gives the insurance companies that much power. I mean, you can't practice medicine in the United States without being a part of that system because the government makes it that way. Just look at LASIK. You can now get a LASIK surgery, $2,000 over a weekend. It's competitive, it's cash based, and guess what they're good at now? They're good at getting you in, getting you out, and fixing your eyeballs. You would never have that with a shoulder surgery. How many have you had a shoulder?
I do the same thing. Yeah, I've had two, both my labrums.
So did you walk into an office in one weekend, be like, yeah, sure, come back in 2 weeks and we'll fix your shoulder? That didn't happen.
No,
And
I mean, yeah,
cutting a little thing, I know it's complicated, but that's not crazier than laser your eyeballs.
yeah, it was a lot more expensive.
I would like to start this episode with a warning. Beware that this rabbit hole that you at the bottom will end up with you being angry at the system and paranoid about everything.
Yeah, I think I'm not necessarily angry. I think this is something that I've had my eyes open to for a very long time. So any sense of anger wasn't there for me, but it's kind of just the same. I don't know. It shows you really have to do your own research. One, two, you got to look out for yourself and your family. There's too much money in it for people like businesses to do that for you. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen, but like you get tricked into thinking your healthcare is there to help you, especially with the name of it. And you just got to remind yourself that they are.
I got my teeth cleaned last month and I asked for no fluoride because I've seen a million studies that say you have lower IQ when you have fluoride, right? And I'd rather have dirty teeth than dumb brain. And they gave me an attitude. And that's like the crazy thing is like in no other industry do they have that much highbrow, what's the word? They look down upon you.
Yeah, I mean
Like,
that's just the cusp of it.
How
And
dare you?
and not only like the doctors talk to you like that, right? It's other people, other peers in your
Yeah.
social life. If you say anything about the medical doctors that had no nutritional training,
Right.
you'll hear a lot in all the media now. It's like these medical doctors didn't have any nutritional training to get their medical degree.
Right.
That's crazy. But no, like people just neglect that fact.
Yep.
So you can't second guess anything without getting people looking at you weird. And
And
that's
you
just going to
wonder,
be a price you got to pay.
sometimes I wonder like the amount of health information I consume from podcasts. I wonder if it's more than 50% of doctors, 75.
Okay.
Like, yes, they worked very hard and memorized a lot of stuff, and they're probably very smart people. Like, with what change in health this year, who do you think's heard more? I wonder sometimes.
So you'll like this. I went to go to lunch with mom and uh, or a hospital and at the Potbellies, and there's like a bunch of young doctors, like older than me, late 20s, like really young doctors around college. There's probably 10 of them. And half of them were drinking Monster Energies. Probably 80% of them were drinking Monster Energies for their lunch, and the other three had Prime
Oh no.
hydration drinks.
Oh
I'm
no.
like, I'm like, this is like if this could explain it, if this
Right.
if people could open their eyes and just look around like,
And how many
okay,
prescriptions do you think they're
and
on?
I don't know, man. And the
More than
crazy
you?
thing is, and another thing that confuses people is you look at them and they look like young, healthy guys. They're all like fit looking, but that doesn't mean you're healthy. You can be fit and not healthy, and at some point it'll catch up to you. But it's something you can't see from the outside. I think one of the things Brigham says is that when he was he was in the medical sales industry, and he would go out and sales calls with doctors and stuff. And he said one thing that was almost inevitable in every scenario was doctors were overworked and exhausted.
Yep.
If you're overworked and exhausted and you have a lot of money, you're probably gonna look somewhat fit. Like you probably don't have time to be obese. So maybe that's kind of another misconception, like another thing that kind of it makes it harder to see.
I'm going to play a game with you. So I wrote down all the stats. So the first time I listened to 2079, Leslie was in the car, and I remember pausing this episode like 15 times to be like, did you hear that? Let's talk about this. So we're going to pick our favorite crazy stat. I'm going to go through these, okay? We're going to actually, because like a lot of these stats, you got Callie Means. We'll probably do her episode soon. Huberman. You got all these health influencers out there now, and they throw out crazy stats, and they blow my mind. And you can kind of get desensitized to them. But if you just think for like 2 seconds how crazy these things are. Ready for one? This one's fun. 50% of the FDA's funding comes from industry. Comes from Nestle, Coca-Cola. Like, so the person that pays half my paycheck, I don't tell them they're wrong either. How is that a thing? All right.
Yeah, that one's and it's not a small. The percentage is high, and it's not a small net total either.
There's the other one you had. Big pharmaceutical spends $8 billion on ads a year. And you know what's crazy about this one? Is like no one who listens to an ad on TV and says, I didn't know there was a prescription for that. I'm going to go find my doctor and go get it prescribed. Like, who's that for?
I agree. That's kind of a crazy concept. Like, are they just trying to build this brand? Hey, this is a family company. Look at these happy families. Look at this nice
Like
name.
branding.
Trust the brand. Don't second
Maybe.
guess it. We're here to help you guys get the name out there. People talk about it. People talk about it. Like, oh, my grandma's on that. That must be good. It's keeping her alive. Like, I think it's definitely to build the branding. It is crazy. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of times, I mean, all products have marketing, but like when it's something that's really good, like a health food, like you don't see health foods have marketing. I don't know, like if it's something that's it's just weird that they have a need for that much marketing.
It feels like a lot of it is like, hey, CNN, let me give you, $2 million for this ad slot. And I'm sure nothing's on paper. There's no deal, but it's like, is CNN really going to go drop the story about Bear killing 150 Jewish women during the World War II? No. I think it's a
Yeah.
little bit of that too. All right, we'll keep going.
Here, hold on. Let me get my yapping dog inside real quick. So
All
he's
right.
not barking the whole podcast.
Come on, Banksy.
Come on. When, come on. Seriously, dude. Banks, come on. Banks, let's go. Sorry. Well, that's gonna keep happening.
You're right. So, hey, as we go through these stats,
Yep. Keep going.
you got to pick out your favorite. We're going to figure out which
Okay.
our favorite stat is. All right, the next one. 1980, Bayer, our favorite company, launches a hemophilia drug, inadvertently contaminates over 1,000 specimens. What do they do with it? Destroy it, probably. No. We're going to Africa, we're going to Asia, to the poorest countries in the world. They infected estimates 20,000 people with HIV. And it's the 80s. I don't know if you weren't alive during the 80s. HIV killed
Yeah,
people in the
you're done.
80s.
You were done.
It was the scariest thing in the world.
That is like, I'm not a big fan of TikTok. But the way things can blow up now on TikTok, it kind of it's kind of comforting to know that the internet can expose those
It
type of
is.
things now.
It's cool. Ready?
That's sad.
This one will get us canceled off YouTube. Um, People vaccinated multiple times over the age of 60 are now more likely to get hospitalized with COVID.
That's like the most like I that is the craziest thing that I don't think any like most of the population could accept that fact.
They don't want to hear it. That's for sure. You
Everyone
know they
who's
don't want to hear it.
yeah, keep it rolling.
All right. Two of the heads of the FDA that approved the vaccines now work for Moderna, and like the episode's kind of about how it's corrupt like that. But like now
Fake
we have
news.
real, like now, like the people that greenlit the Moderna vaccine are now working for Moderna. Awesome. The last 40 years, only two heads of the FDA did not go on to work for industry. In 40 years, it's just like in your face, just like we're
Yeah.
gonna take this money. You're
I
not gonna
mean
care enough to do anything about it.
that one hurts because it's like we seriously don't have anything against no rules against that. Like that's
Right.
like insider trading but worse because it's people's health.
Right.
It's like yeah, that's like obvious. And we're gonna take money for
This one's crazy. This one might have my vote, Connie. More people died last year to opiates than any other year in American history.
I know that. I
Like
missed that fact, but
we think
that's
we're so advanced, yet everyone's just dying to opioids. No, dude. No, you're messing up my keyboard. All right, here's another one that's crazy. More people have now died to opioids in America than died in Vietnam.
yeah, it's that.
Have you seen those videos of Vietnam and how brutal it was? Dude.
What's this is interesting. I feel like most of my content says that the opioid what's it epidemic is over. Like it's gone and past. Like they
Well,
said they speak about it like it's past tense.
the companies are no longer prescribing it and saying it's not addictive. That's in the past. But the consequences are with us because you just got a whole 3 generations addicted to opioids. And then when you tell them they can't have it via prescription anymore, what do? They go get heroin, but turns out it's laced with some fentanyl, and they all die. It's just sad. It's sad. More than a major war where napalm was a normal weapon.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but it just feels so helpless.
Well, it's like thank God I don't know anybody in our family that has a problem with opioids. But like that would be so hard to fix that problem. It's kind of like one
Yeah,
of those like don't let that genie out of the bottle because once it's out, what do you do? This one's my vote. I changed my mind already because it gets crazier. 90% of the products that are in the operating room have never had human safety trials.
and this is like the tools they use, right?
Everything,
Or like the stuff they put in your body, both, right?
everything. The anesthesia, the anti-nausea, the blood thinners, he was describing like this process where if you can relate it to some other product, and his
Yeah,
example was like a Ford a Model T to a Tesla, it's similar, right? So the government approves
yeah.
it.
That the FDA created a rule because they're getting so bottlenecked with advancements that they said the rule is if you can find something that's comparable that's already in there, we can like kind of grandfather it in. Like,
Right. And
and the
that
tools have changed so much.
yeah. And the government's trying to help, but see that's the problem with the government being there in the first place. Like you assume that when you're on that table, the government, the FDA has made sure all those drugs are safe to go inside of you. And if you didn't have that assumption, we'd actually ask the hospital, "Hey, have you tested this on anybody before? Or am I the first one?" And like,
And he gave an example when he was when he was a sales rep. He was at a surgery for a lion, a tiger.
Tiger.
And
That was crazy.
there was a scalpel that had this like very obvious green marking.
Green tape.
And like, yeah. And what was it, months later? I think
A
it
couple
was
months
like
later.
within a year, he saw it again at a human surgery. And he
And he was
looked
like,
up the serial number and he figured out it was the same one. And a big part of the issue is he was also saying that the process for cleaning those tools hasn't really been updated. So the like we've learned a lot about how well bacteria can live, and he was referring that we aren't cleaning them to the point they need to be cleaned to get all that bacteria out,
yeah.
off of them. I think that's a big part in his journey of leaving that industry too.
Yeah.
Seeing stuff like that.
For him. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. We got 3 more. This one's crazy. They're all crazy. I mean, like, they're all crazy. And they get me fired up. Can you hear the passion? They get me
Yeah.
fired up. This is
This
the
is a
angry.
late night podcast, by the way. We're not going to sleep till midnight.
65% of an oncologist's income comes from chemotherapy.
I don't even want to address that. That's so sad. What's crazy too is it really it's easy to kind of blame them for it, but it's such a bad system they're in. They get out of school with all this debt. They get the job and say they do figure out like, hey, we probably could be doing better stuff. Like, what are they to do? Leave with $200,000 of student loans
Right.
and like fight
And
for the good cause? Like, no, they probably have a family at that point. They're already 30 by the time they graduate. And if you think about them as humans too, it's kind of hard to even blame them for not doing anything else.
right. And they signed a contract with the hospital to save people from cancer. But they didn't look in the fine print, or they probably didn't, and say, okay, I only get paid when I prescribe chemo, essentially.
Yeah.
65%. From, like, think of all the things a surgeon does in a day, that him writing on a piece of paper for a chemotherapy drug is how he makes most of his money. That's crazy.
So, hey, pause for this real quick. So, I don't know where I heard this information, so it could not be true, but I'm curious if you've ever heard it. If you Xanax is derived from chemo, the medicine used in chemotherapy. It has like a high percentage, like in the 90% of the same like chemical makeup. Have you heard that?
Not.
Let
What
me
I do
let me
know
look
from
it up.
chemistry is, like, when you have a molecule that's 90% the same as the next one, they might as well be 2 different things.
So it's like genes.
Yeah, just I think of a protein, right? Because every protein has the same branch chains.
But don't they test like so like on autopsies when you die, they test um what chemical makeup, like what drug you're on. They look at the chemical makeup.
Yeah, autopsy.
Are you saying that they're all like that close?
I mean, you'd be able to tell, but I'm just saying I would not. I'm not saying Xanax is a good drug, and I would never want anyone close to me, though I love to take it. But just because 90% of a molecule is the same as something that's bad, it's not. It's kind of like it's a misnomer I'd be careful of. But all right, there's 2 from that Senate hearing I thought I'd bring in. One was a 747 worth of passengers died every day of opioids. Still, it's like sad. And
It's
then
the biggest plane, by the way. The biggest passenger plane that's
you're right.
used today
What is it, like 400
for
people?
non-aerospace people.
Oh, and then the last one is another crazy stat. The number 1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States is healthcare.
Medical bills, yeah. Ooh, that one is a lot bigger of a deal than it sounds. All the other ones have big numbers, high percentages, but that's messed up.
Yeah,
And like,
yeah, it is.
especially with you look how cheap everything else has gotten in our market. Like all these crazy technologies have gotten so cheap, and medical bills are so super expensive.
All those drugs that, like insulin, that cost went from $50 to $1,500. The reason they can do that is because we have patent protections from the U.S. government, right? So the government is providing an advantage for this company And one, patents are good for X amount of years. So you don't have a monopoly forever. But they cheat that all the time because they just slightly change the formula and then re-up the patent, right? They do that all the time. But secondly, it's like, if the government was involved, if we didn't have patent protection at all, then all those drugs would be competitively cheap. Like, we are pretty good at manufacturing molecules now. Turns out, like, we figured out chemistry pretty well. And it's like, no drug. What drug should cost 20?
Well, it's not really even the fact that they're that expensive to make. Like it sounds like the price is down. It's just the matter of the insurance industry's inflating the prices so that they can make more money with like their hidden rebates and whatnot. Like Ozempic is like 10 times the price in America than it is in Europe.
Yeah. Well, why? Why? Because other companies can make that peptide, but they're not allowed to legally because they have a patent on it. If the government would just get out of the freaking way, let the free market take its way. The argument is, without the patent protections, there'd be less incentive to go find the new drug that solves the next disease, right? That's
Yeah,
the argument.
that seems like it's bullcrap at this point. Like obviously there's money to be made.
Right.
If you look in software, there's a million of those things where you have competitors and basically copycats, but people still want to develop new software ideas that get easily mimicked. It's just a matter of being first to it.
And imagine you solve the cure for cancer. If you don't make $1 billion off it, you're still going to want to go do that. I mean, all right, so it's time to pick your favorite stat.
Favorite. Can we reword this? It's fun. Time to
The
pick
one that
your.
pisses you off the most.
Okay, the time to pick your most pissed off stat.
That's right. That's right.
I would say mine is that the one about being twice
I
fast.
think you're now more likely to get hospitalized with COVID.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the thing about that one that really gets me is during the whole COVID thing, like it was kind of up in the air. You didn't really know. There's so much information everywhere. You didn't really know how effective they were going to be. You could kind of hedge your bets. But now the fact that it surfaced and people still will not open their eyes is why that is the craziest fact. Like I would say a high percentage of people who were twice, multiple vaxxed, whatever, would not listen to that fact.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just crap. You can't mandate it, but also take away all the liability.
Yeah, and like, oh man, they didn't do the testing that it sounds like they should have done on it because it was like a emergency,
Right.
and
But even if you
it was a
make
perfect storm for them.
yeah, but if you make the argument, like, we got to get this out fast, right? Don't tell people you've done the testing. Like, they were telling everyone it wouldn't transmit after you got this vaccine. Like, we've done the testing. It won't affect pregnant ladies. We've done the testing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to Fauci at that point,
Dude.
sorry to laugh at
No,
that, but
I mean, people, it was real there for a second. I thought I was going to lose my job. And it
yeah,
was tribal too.
it was very tribal, which is crazy. And yeah, there's so much pressure. If you didn't have your wits about you, if you didn't have your own research done and really know what you wanted to do, I mean, you're probably getting peer pressured into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you want to go to King's game, like our brother did.
Uh-oh. All right. What you got,
Sorry,
Colin? I've
this
been
is already
talking
called,
for
man.
an hour.
No, that was good. Okay. The second episode, 2079, he was talking about LLMs a lot. And this was the last year. So it was when ChatGPT was kind of like hitting it. It was like
Yeah.
this time last year that ChatGPT was really going off. To just give perspective about when it was recorded. But he was talking about it for his Ways to Wellness company. And basically what he was wanting to do was to feed it the appropriate, accurate information. So peer-reviewed studies, they would filter all the information it gets to use, and they would use it as a resource for their people, or like their subscribers. So like me and you could subscribe to Ways Wellness, and we would have like a 24-hour basically what it would feel like as a clinician, like an expert in the field to ask questions to whenever you want, which is like genuinely like what I want. Like that sounds like an awesome thing. One of my thoughts about that, what I started thinking about was if that was something I had in my pocket and I could trust it, if I could genuinely trust it, because that's a whole nother conversation. But if I could trust this as a source of information, accurate information, I think people like Huberman and Peter Attia are kind of out of a job on their podcast. I don't have to listen to them anymore.
I
I
mean,
don't, unless I do it for like just fun and kicks and gigs.
they're kind of on the bleeding edge, right? The problem I have it with hindsight, right? Because it was a year ago, but when I'm picturing like where are you going to get like LLMs need large amounts of data. It's not like you just give it a lot. It needs a lot. It
So,
needs the internet worth of data.
so part of the issue of what he was saying, as a technical person, it sounds like he was saying he was going. So LLMs, for it to be LLM, that means it just knows how to interpret language. So when he was saying he was going to feed it all the information, to me, he was saying this LLM, we have the LLM code, like the neural networks already programmed and trained to process words. We're just going to train the knowledge base of it. So like it doesn't need the whole internet to like learn how to talk, but we're going to give it all the knowledge base to what it can spew out, which is kind of worrisome because LLMs can be tricked, right? And so if it is the fact that they're just training this last percent, which just with just the knowledge base of what it should be able to use, it's like how effective is it in not being tricked or not being like tripped up? And that's where I go into the importance of being able to trust it.
See, my thing is like how much data do you really have out there of peer reviewed studies? One, like most peer reviewed studies, most good science is inconclusive, especially in human biology, right? So you got that. But then you have like when you look at like Nature or one of those big scientific journals, they've had 80 years of the FDA saying added sugar's fine for babies. It's a normal part of their diet. So it's like you have to
There's
go sift out all of that shit science that's been like done for profits. And I don't see, even if you have the horsepower to do it, what you get left with, the good science, I don't think that's enough for an LM. That would be my take right now.
See, I mean, when you say it's not enough for LLM, I think one like peer-reviewed study, if you have an LLM currently and you provided it the information of like 100 peer-reviewed studies, you could ask it questions on each of those and it'd still be able to like, it's basically a way to like sift through information
So,
is what
like,
an
let's say
LLM
Chat
does.
GPT, we had our own private Chat GPT.
Hmm.
You could like train it with 100 peer-reviewed studies, and if I
Yeah,
asked you for something that's relevant to those studies, it would tell me that, and not all of the massive internet it's been trained on.
yeah, and that's really from how I heard it, that's how it has to be. Like you genuinely, like you're saying, you couldn't teach a model from the ground up how to process language just from medical information. Like that doesn't seem attainable. And I think that's what
Right.
you're
And then
saying.
speak Latin.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying is like you don't think they're going to be able to do that. And I
I
don't think that's
still
what they're going to do. I think they're going to do that last small percentage of training. And that's pretty common for like anybody using large language models. They use like that open source llama and they do the training on top of it.
let's say I had 12 peer-reviewed studies that say added sugar's bad, right? Past 10 grams. And I gave that to Chat GPT. Can it really override with that information all
Yeah,
the massive amounts of the internet telling it's fine? Like that preference works.
yeah, I don't think that's too hard. The issue is I think that exploits the fact that it's not that hard to change what LLM outputs.
Really?
Like I think like if you were like trying to be devious and trick it, I think you could probably, if it was trained on those 10 things, 10 peer-reviewed studies, you could probably trick it to kind of not say what was in those. But if you're genuinely just wanting to get the information as a user, you're not going to be trying to trick it. Like it'd be pretty hard for it to mess up.
Yeah, that kind of makes me not like LLMs as much.
Hey,
Like I've
they're
seen the fishy
they're
stuff, the fishy
super. They can
outputs.
be super decisive or like deceptive. Sorry, they can be super deceptive because they're like this super smart, almost what feels like to be a being that you can tell it to really do whatever you want it to do.
Like
Like
you're
you
really
could,
smart, but I want you to be dumb in this area. I want you to
yeah,
be
yeah,
wrong.
and that's going to be the future we gotta kind of live with
It.
and continue to be be smart on our end to what we trust.
I'm glad you told me that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty obvious with the whole Google release about 6 months ago when they did all this edge training after the. So they had a model that could process language. It could do that. It could do the conversations. And they did all this in training on trying to make it to be woke. And it was outputting that like
Yeah.
presidents or people signing Declaration of Independence were African American. And like it was very obvious that it could process the language. It could talk to you. It was doing what an LLM can do, but the knowledge that it was allowed to output was skewed.
That and it's like there's now been 3 episodes we've talked about AI. Like it's crazy. It's
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 gonna
going
come
to be
up, yeah.
crazy how impactful AI is in every part of your life. And it's like there's another example of where whoever wins this AI race, like you're now going to understand how to keep people alive. And you could take advantage of that. You could be like these insurance companies. If they have the AI, they have the data. Like he was saying, they could literally cover you for the first X amount of years, knowing exactly when your disease would go over the cliff and then uncover you. Or vice versa. You have your own AI that you can trust. You get all this data from wearables, and then you can live for.
Yeah, I there's a perfect world and
Uh-huh.
then there's the scary world, right? And they're both like it's going to be hard to tell which one we're living in as we're going through it.
Right.
It's really going to only be hindsight.
Because how do you know who's winning? Who do you think's winning right now?
I I feel like the internet has really opened up information and opened up eyes. I can't say who's winning. I would say it's the race hasn't even started yet.
No, like the race for AI, for general intelligence. Like, so you got
Gotcha.
Microsoft and OpenAI. I think they're winning the current product on the market. Google, I thought was going to be a titan in it, but they look like they've cared more about diversity than figuring out intelligence. Tesla can drive itself and will soon, like, I think Tesla's got a shot. And then you got, I don't know, who knows where China is?
Well, so Tesla is like they're teaming up with X, and X just actually built like the largest AI training cluster
I
in the
saw that
world in like
in
90
19 days.
days.
What?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about how good Musk's companies function, like uh, it's kind of hard to bet against them. I think what their Gronk AI is. I don't. I'm pretty sure that's all in house, but I haven't really used it. But from what I've heard, it's just as good as like all the other models. So for them to catch up that quick, kind of out of nowhere, it's pretty promising.
Well, and he's got all the data from Twitter, right? He's got
Hmm.
all the video from every Tesla driving around for the past 10 years with 6 cameras on it. And
11.
then, was it 11 now? I don't know. One, two, three. I know of 6. I'm sure there's more. And then if he's successful, he's going to have a robot in every person's home interacting with humans daily. Like that data on a mass, like how does OpenAI get that data? If all it's getting it from the internet.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. I think OpenAI has kind of reached their. I mean, there's still a lot of innovation that needs to be made. These models, large language models, just aren't able to, like, they understand language. They're just mimicking uh, conversations and documents and stuff they've read. So there's a lot of innovation I think to be had in actual AI, like just in general. Because like I don't know if the large language models are going to be the general intelligence that people think of. Now, neural networks, which large language models are neural networks. Like I wonder if there's going to be something else that gets created with neural networks, which is like what Tesla's autopilot system uses.
Yeah.
They have 9 cameras, by the way. Sorry, split the difference. Also, I did look up that thing about Xanax, and they're not derived by chemotherapy.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with those. I feel like those, like those conspiracy theories we talked about last week.
Mhm.
Like there's a couple plants out there that are just like, look at this idiot. He's like molecules.
How do you how are you gonna listen to this guy and roll the clip? Yeah. Sorry about that. The there's like a good amount of ideas in my head that I'm like, I heard that at one point. I never looked into it. And so it's still floating around in my head. Um, yeah. Anyways, who's gonna win the race? I think Facebook is doing a lot better than anybody expected. So Facebook and X are kind of the surprisingly, they're the dark horses, in my opinion. I think Facebook's kind of like Facebook, they went with the open source model, and it seems like they've gotten a lot of adoption.
What? So help me understand that. What's open source? What's the difference?
So I can go on the internet, specifically GitHub. GitHub's like a place where you can grab people's code.
Mm-hmm.
You can grab their code, download it, implement it, develop on it, use it any way you want to. So I can actually go into GitHub. I can download this file that says Llama 3.0 with some other information on it. I can download that and run a Python script and run it in my terminal on my computer. The only way I can use ChatGPT is through their website.
Yeah.
They don't give me access to the actual executable or code that is their product. So Facebook does that. So I could buy like a small microcomputer and like create like a duplicate Alexa, or I could run it on a server, which wouldn't be too efficient, and like have a chat bot on my website. So I
Wait,
can
so
use
like
it anywhere
you're getting their
freely.
software. Is it, help me understand the words. Are you getting software that has been trained that knows everything Llama knows on their website?
Yeah, you
And
could
like you don't have to download all that data that trained it to go with it?
no, you wouldn't be able to. I don't.
So when
You're
you're
getting
done
the
training a
trained
model,
models.
when you're done training it, you have software code that knows the answer to any question, essentially. Like without having to access that data still.
So large language models are a a, a bunch of layers of basically. So you get an input, and the input there's a bunch of layers of weights, and the weights are basically decision points that are like yes or no. And based on the input, those decision points are yes or no, and it goes through the millions of those weights and comes out the other end. So you're getting the that model with all those weights already like training a model is tuning those weights to make the
Yeah.
output
Okay.
correct. So you're getting the model like the shape of the neural nets with the weights trained in it.
Mm.
I don't know if they open source like what like dimensions the neural nets are and all the other stuff that come into it because that's all like very important and probably very expensive and like very proprietary information. So I'm kind of curious if they open source that. I kind of doubt it just because it would be kind of useless unless you have a supercomputer to train state-of-the-art neural network on.
and mountains of data to make it any different.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it. I think most of the times they do there's a name for it, but it's basically like you have a train model and you train on top of it.
Mhm.
You can either add more layers to it, or you can do what some people do and tell it. You put in parameters and say like, hey, you you need to talk like your second grader. Like you need to have responses only like this is a simple explanation, like kind of like monitoring its output, like kind of changing its output. But that wouldn't necessarily require training.
So the is the advantage of open source just that more people will use that? Like, is it a popularity advantage rather than like
I think that's part of it. A lot of open source software, the idea is developers and companies will start using it and they will adopt it and they will one be dependent on you, but sometimes it's the case where they like kind of further it.
so
That
like
would be
they're
the
adding
benefit.
software to it that you might keep in there?
Yeah, not necessarily keeping there, but you might adopt as well. And yeah, and then just getting more people testing it too. I don't know initially how they get that information back, but it seems like they get more data on how well it's working when they push it out like that. So yeah, that would be the adoption factor of it.
You know how we've been talking about AI every episode? Seems like now it's like at work, I'm looking around. I don't see any AI in my work. I don't see any. I hear about all these advancements. I see some of the products and they're awesome. But the amount that I actually use in my life is so minimal. And it's like, am I is my perception more closer to the truth, or is my company toast and they're just gonna lose because they're not playing the game?
So I'm kind of in the same boat. The message we get is that basically, so a lot of the questions I think companies get for why they haven't used AI yet, like people ask questions like, why is there not AI in the products? I don't think we're gonna first see AI in any product because it's not trustworthy enough. You can't give it to consumers and expect them to kind of use it flawlessly. And that's why it's not in a lot of products. I think AI is first going to get used as a development tool, productivity tool. And you could have even been talking about that as well. I think, I mean, you got to also consider we're only about a year into this whole large language models going mainstream. So it's pretty new. And
But so what they tell me is like they're scared that if we use someone's model and that goes into our work, then they have a claim that they're
yeah,
part of our,
I hear the same thing.
which is okay. I got it. The lawyers, they're always so slow to adapt. But it's like if it's as important as we think it is, just us two, like why if I was a CEO, every day would start off with how are we gonna compete in this world in 10 years? How does AI not undercut everything we do?
Yeah, so if you're a CEO in that position, like what are the odds you'd be able to guess like the right solution in that?
I just race into everything. It's like what I think is really interesting right now. It seems like a lot of companies are risk on. It seems like all of Elon's companies are. It feels like
Yeah,
Silicon
I'll
Valley
hit.
is. It's all like we know it's not
Yeah.
profitable, but if we strike gold, we're set for the next 20 years. And I think it's no different if I'm a company, if I'm a real company that can't, if I'm looking at this landscape and said, I'm not ready to compete or I can't catch up, then I'm partnering with somebody. And I'm every part of my business, not just my product, but every part of my business, I am trying to say, where can I just shove AI into this? Whether it's not 100% yet or not, here, engineers, try to use this. Try, 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 try. And eventually you'll learn how to do it.
Yeah. I I think there's a lot of adoption that could be made, but yeah, the people making the decisions, I think they're too scared of it, at least in the companies that I see or hear about.
Me,
So
it's the
are
opposite.
they?
I'm scared I'm going to lose. I'm scared I'm going to be out of the job if I don't adapt.
I agree. I think it feels like that's 5, 10 years out when you're going to
That's
start seeing those
you
companies
got
turn
you
over.
got 40 years left of your career, Conley.
Yeah,
I got
dude, I
30.
don't even, well, that's like, there's going to be that wave of like, hey, the companies that figure it out how to use it, right? How to utilize it as a tool. I think the first wave is going to be the companies that figure how to use it as a productivity tool. That's going to be the first wave of companies that just run over everyone. But then there's going to be that wave of when it gets,
Like the products.
yeah, when it gets into all of,
Like
I don't,
everything you use, your refrigerator has freaking AI in it.
yeah, I don't know. A lot of the products seem gimmicky to me.
So what are
I
your
mean,
most like so what are the ones you're most excited about?
products or like development tools.
Products. Products.
Well, for my car to drive itself, that'd be really nice.
Right? Transportation, like the humanoid helper.
Are we even allowed to talk about humanoid helpers? They're going to change the world, and it's going to be a scary world. Like as soon as those hit, man,
There's also
I
the
mean,
AI in your phone, right?
yeah, the AI in my phone would be really nice.
Gets to know you.
It could like the idea that Apple promises of their Apple Intelligence of like it's summarizing your notifications, it being able to interact with applications, non-native applications. Like that future would be very nice. I'd buy into that. But like, I don't know. It's so hard to tell how much of it's hype and how much of it is genuine. Like it's going to happen. It feels like when you use ChatGPT and you see how effective it is with its like plugins with Canva, it's like it feels like it's going to be there. But it hasn't happened yet, right? So like maybe the technology isn't quite to the point everyone thinks it's at, and that could be why we're not seeing this adoption. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty close to true. These models aren't intelligent. They're like mimicking intelligence, and then you get to the argument of like, what's the difference?
Hmm.
It kind of seems like there is a difference though. Like you could fake being able to pass a test. You're mimicking intelligence. But in a week, are you going to remember that information and still be, are you actually like intelligent in that information? No, you're just mimicking it. So, yeah, I don't know. I read this book, Human Intelligence, Artificial Intelligence Thinking Like Humans, and its premise was to decide if artificial intelligence was like, could think like humans. And one thing they talked about, which I've actually started to hear in mainstream media, is AI winners and summers. Ever since AI was ever thought of, there was what they call AI summers and winners. And basically, it gets super hyped up in the summers. And that's what we just went through. And then it goes through these winters for like 5, 10, 20 years. Um, and so there's basically a big advancement in technology during the summers. And it's been happening since
Like when
since the
chess,
first.
like you got a chess spot.
Yep, Deep Blue. When Deep Blue beat the Grandmaster.
How
And it
old was
started
that? Was that 10 years ago? No?
in the
20?
70s.
Beat the chess master?
Dude, that was
Look
it
that
was
shit up,
before
Jamie.
2000s.
Look that shit up, Jamie. Come on.
77. Deep
Well,
Blue.
good
Oh, yeah.
guess.
Sorry. Yeah. I said 1970, but that was really stupid because computers couldn't do crap back then. But I knew it was before 2000s.
Wow, that's crazy.
But yeah, so even like, it was crazy because in the book, I mean, I read it like when I was in college, but it's hard to recall the dates. When the first idea of what they call the perceptron, it's basically like a mimic of the neuron. It's like you get these inputs, you have a weight, and it outputs. That's what they call the perceptron. Ever since that was created, and that's like the basis of neural nets, and ever since that was created, there's been the hype of when are computers going to be smarter than humans? They like even like when they were making that, they're like 10 years, like it's going to happen.
Right.
And so they had these crazy predictions back then. And it's
Maybe.
like,
I often wonder. It's crazy that the the big breakthrough is like them just being able to predict the next word. Like, and that does math better than we do math.
Yeah,
But
it's
you wonder if it's going to have to leap past that to like truly be intelligent.
I think it will, and that's probably a big part of why we're not seeing the mass adoption. It feels like we're really close to that perpetual knowledge machine, but maybe we're really, really far away still.
Yeah,
Because
maybe.
I mean, that's a different world to live in
Yeah.
with a perpetual knowledge machine. Like, that's not even hard to conceptualize how much that would change. So, yeah, and that's what kind of I heard from the industry, from non-AI companies, was this is promising information. It's kind of overhyped. Um, we're they won't say directly, but we're in the AI summer of hype,
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
so once you go through the
Feels like
summer,
half our GDP is invested in it right now.
yeah, and so once you go through the winter, you figure out like what
What
information,
sticks?
like what technology, yeah, what sticks.
Yeah.
So yeah, AI, AI, help the algorithm out. Get YouTube to play our video. Just keep saying AI.
Well, it's like we keep hitting these beach subjects, and everyone ends in AI will change it, and
Yeah,
it's like I don't think this is
uh,
going to stop.
it's gonna be a really like it's gonna be really good at a lot of things. Math, coding, same thing. Math and coding with helping medical doctors diagnose like screenings, like X-rays, MRIs. It's gonna be really good at that because that kind of is a math problem when you think about it as in like pixels, like it's just patterns. So it's gonna be really good in that stuff. What else?
But,
Driving.
but math and memorization of facts is like what we all do. It's intelligent work. It's white collar work. That's what we do.
Yeah. I don't, so the whole Tesla robot thing, there was a talk that they were assisted by humans, which seems like to be the case because they were like phenomenally good.
Really? Did Tesla say anything?
So at the event, I believe they like were like, don't worry, they're not going to kill you. They're monitored by humans. They said something like along those lines. But that didn't get mentioned in like the public streaming of it.
Yeah.
But I really question, and I don't know if this is even for me to question, but how well they're going to be able to integrate language models with vision and physical output. Like, that seems like a hard data set to capture to train these models on.
But what's the Tesla doing when it's full self driving?
It's it's
That's
inputting visual and outputting. Yeah, I guess it's the same. You have a lot more outputs with like a humanoid robot, but
right,
yeah,
but you're
I
not going
guess.
70 miles per hour either.
Well, like, what are you strapping? Like, are you filming people from cameras and using that data? But then how does that capture the human interaction of them talking, them looking at each other, them interpreting, as far as humanoid robots go, which is kind of a crazy task.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder problem than self-driving, that's for sure. And they don't have to necessarily be perfect to be industry changing too. Like they don't have to be that good at human interaction to go mow someone's lawn, do landscaping, do
Right.
roofing, work in a factory.
Right. To do repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
All right, let's help back to the podcast. Did you have anything else you want to hit? I had a couple to round us out.
What do you think about Brigham's company? Like, have you looked into actually buying the product at all, or are you interested in that?
So last Christmas, I did buy Leslie a blood test, a comprehensive blood test that came with a follow-up consultation with a doctor, kind of like what he does. He does DEXAs, he does MRIs as well, so he's optical as well as blood tests. It had genetic tests in there. It was really good. It was
The genetic mutilation test?
mutilation test, the motherfucker test.
Yeah.
The I don't remember if it covered that gene, but it was really good at just like reassuring us everything's on track, everything, nothing's bad happening. I would love to ditch my health insurance and pick up waste to well. I would even pay the ridiculous amount I'm paying now. And I think it's cheaper. But my company, as part of my benefits package, provides me very much discounted health insurance, right? Like that's how I'm being compensated. And there's no options for me to do waste to wells through my company benefits. So
You would really go without health insurance though?
absolutely. In a heartbeat. In
What
a
happens if
heartbeat.
your kid breaks their arm? Like how much money you're going to be out just to put them in
I
a
would go without
cast?
car insurance. I would go without house insurance. I am so anti-insurance at this point.
I get like how auto would be hard to go without, I think.
I get auto. Auto I get because a lot of times it's making sure the other person doesn't leave you high and dry
Yeah.
and shafted.
But like health insurance, like what do you like you're just going to be out how much it's got to be like $10,000 to go get an arm repaired if it's like snapped sideways, right? Wouldn't it just be
Yeah.
cheaper to have health insurance?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the health insurance I want. I want the health insurance that covers the worst emergencies.
Yeah.
I want a very high deductible, low premium, covers the scary stuff.
Yeah.
I want surgery. I want, that kind of stuff. But that's not what you don't get to pay for that. I mean, it really sucks that it doesn't feel like there's another option than health insurance.
There's not. Yeah, there's not.
But do I get my money's worth out of it? Fuck no. Just go do. How long have you been in the workforce?
2 years?
2 years.
2.5.
So that's 52 paychecks. How much is your monthly premium on insurance?
I don't pay anything right now.
You don't pay anything.
It's 100% paid for by our company.
Okay. Well, so so that means no, you're paying for it. That means that
It's coming out. Yeah, like
they
I
would
can,
pay
I
you
can,
more. You're worth
yeah,
more to them than your salary.
yeah. I can view how much they pay for my health insurance, but I don't have to pay for it.
How much do you think it is?
It's not an option. I think it's like 500 a month.
What's 500 times 52?
A month.
Okay, what's 500 times 26? Where's your calculator at? I got my phone.
500 times 26.
13,000. That should have been easier. If it wasn't so late, I should have done that. Have
Yeah,
you
me
got
too.
13 grand worth of health out of what you've paid in?
Dude, I don't even go to the doctor.
Now imagine
Yeah.
an alternate universe where you can pay cash for a surgery and it's not gouged. It's a competitive market. And you take that 13 grand and you put it in a high yield savings. And that 13 grand could be used to replace your roof. If hail strikes your roof, it could be used to fix a broken ankle. When I break it playing one-on-one basketball with you, it
Break it.
it can fix your car if it breaks.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah. I mean,
it's
like you're talking about like a whole like if it was mainstream and prices were lower, then yeah, it would make sense. But we're just so in this system of health insurance and insurances. It's like not even like fathomable.
right. Hey, sweetie. But like, first off, you're pretty much playing with the casino, right? Every single thing you gamble on in Vegas has negative odds on it. Every single thing, right? So there's that. Like the government insures insurance companies that they're going to make X% of profits. So first off, you're playing a losing game. And then the second thing, and it's smaller in my mind, but all that money that you would be saving if you did a savings plan instead would compound, right?
Yeah.
So if you are healthy, then that would be a huge chunk of your savings.
Yeah, I think the bigger point is like health insurance really is non-beneficial for healthy people.
Yeah.
I don't, it's kind of crazy. I mean, we grew up like it, but like just people that go to the doctor just on like a strictly like X number of months, they go to the doctor. Like, I don't get like why you go to the doctor if you're not sick or like needing immediate attention. It's just crazy to me. Like, and it's like most people do that.
Right. And like even
And
like
that's what I'm
very
paying
smart
for.
people like Huberman and Atia would tell you go to the doctor. This kind of gets to one of my 2 points I had left is like it's so sad. First off, it's so sad that the amount, like how many people do you know that has had cancer, diabetes, heart failure, or some sort of Alzheimer's or dementia? Like the four horsemen, they call it. Like it's so prevalent.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not normal. Like people have gotten used to it, and that's what makes me mad. Is like they're just
Well, because you're told there's nothing you can do besides take the
right.
medicine.
Well, and it's kind of random fate, right? It's not. It has nothing to
Mhm.
do with we're in a toxic environment and our food's
Yeah.
poisoned, and they're pumping fluoride in our water. Dude,
Have you got a water filter system for your house yet?
hell yes.
Nice.
This little girl has had a very, very minimal amount of fluoride her entire life.
That's good.
And show her your teeth. Show your teeth. Hey, they're fine. What? That's crazy. It's almost like humans evolved to take care of their teeth without fucking fluoride. But anyways, it's crazy how normal it is. Like you hear some of those stats, they're like childhood obesity. I'm making this up.
Yeah.
I know I'm close. It's like 50% of the kids are obese now. If you were a doctor 100 years ago, you would see one kid before puberty with diabetes in maybe your whole career, if you ever even saw it. And now it's just normal.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Mm.
Dude, they talked about so much stuff in these episodes. Like, we're talking about insurance and, like, they even talked about home insurance, which was, they had some good, like, thoughts on that. They're talking about how, like, California, like, it's hard to get home insurance in a lot of places now. In
Yeah.
Florida with the hurricanes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Insurance is a math problem, right? Ultimately.
Yeah. You call it a problem. It's more of a math money maker.
Cost times the profit. All right. Hit us with the last thing and then we'll go to the takeaways.
They talked a lot about stem cells, which are crazy. It seems like we're
Exciting.
at just at the start of those stem cells. They talked a lot about red light therapy, like kind of along with stem cells. And I want to listen to that red light therapy on Huberman. It's an episode I might have to go back and watch or listen to rather on Huberman. I don't know if you're as interested as I was.
I could do a Huberman marathon with you. Honestly, I love that podcast. I've listened to probably half of them he's ever made. It's
Last year I was on a
fantastic.
big kick, and I haven't really listened to any of this. I tried to listen to Peter Attia, but I never really gotten into it.
He's better.
He seems a lot more. I mean, from a normal person listening to Huberman, that's a lot of information to listen to Huberman. And Peter Attia is like next level.
Yeah, he's engineering. That's why I like him. Get out, dude.
I think we're getting the hard cut on the episode.
All right. Well, let's do the takeaways. Let's do the takeaways.
My takeaway is sad. It's don't get trapped in the thinking services businesses they're providing to help you or your family's well-being. Understand their business and their goal is to make a profit. It's very easy to forget that. And it's sad because, like, what do you do with that? But you just try to look out for yourself and make the best decision.
I had one, and it's not directly from the podcast, but when I was listening to the podcast and they were talking about the sunlight being correlated with testosterone, it was like, 1 second. I told you to get out. I want to, and maybe we'll do this together. Maybe we'll share a spreadsheet. I just want to, so like there's, I think, very blocking and tackling type things. And if you do it, you never need to deal with any of this bullshit. You don't need health insurance if you do these things. I am convinced. So I'm going to do a spreadsheet and I'm just going to fill it out daily and see how close I get to getting all 6 of these each day. Sunshine for 30 minutes, walking for 30 minutes, and exercise, protein in every meal, sleep 8 hours a day, and avoid poison. And I've started calling everything poison that's just trying to kill me because they call Doritos food, but turns out it's just poison. I'm just calling it poison from now on. But that's what I mean by avoid poison.
Is that a no sugar diet?
No. Humans have been eating sugar for a long time.
Well, not like, sorry.
Should you eat
like,
500 grams? No.
Like not like fruit sugar, like sugar.
So I've done pretty good about getting like sugary beverages out, and I don't like a lot of sweet stuff. So I don't really have a problem with added sugar. If it's there, it's there. I don't really go out of my way to avoid it. I just don't like if you take away food that has all the poison in it, that takes away most of the sugary stuff. It's kind of a 1-2 punch they do there.
I was just
Here's
wondering
a bunch of
because
sugar, and here's a bunch of stuff that will kill you but makes it more addictive.
I was listening to some more Dan Martell stuff, and he was like, he says a lot. Like I cut all sugar out of my diet. I don't drink anymore. And I was like, the sugar one. I'm like, see, I like don't eat sugar in like my meals, but like I mean, let a man have a cookie. I didn't know
Like,
if you.
like Leslie makes cookies from home. She makes them with like all natural ingredients. I don't put a limit on them for me because I know it's not full. Like the Nestle, if you go pull up a Chips Ahoy cookie and look at the ingredient list, I would rather eat, 100 homemade cookies than one of those things. So, buddy, where's mom? Is she taking a shower? She loves when you go interrupt her shower. Yeah, go interrupt her shower.
It seems like a sarcasm, pal.
Yeah, he doesn't get it. All right.
Dude, all right. Closing thoughts for me is we covered like what I feel like was 10% of like
Yes.
just the topics that they covered. It's well worth listening to them, and we could have probably made 4 more episodes talking about it.
And we will. We will. The amount of
Yeah,
health podcasts we're going to cover, I promise,
I
is going to
think
be up there.
I think he is a great guy to start your podcast rabbit hole health
Yes, he is.
search for information
Don't trust
because
the
he
insurance
like
company. Step one.
yeah because he doesn't kind of get you in with like the big like the kind of juicy topics. He like really explains the system and how it's set up to not benefit you.
All right.
I think that's a good perspective to gain as you're diving in. Yeah,
Yeah, as far as like an episode about details of health insurance, I'm sure it's not on many people's to do list for a Saturday evening. It was a damn good episode.
yeah,
It's
and
important.
especially with all like it seems like it's just now starting to surface like Cali meeting RF.
Yeah, it's all RFK. I give him like 90% of the credit because he's taking it mainstream.
Hmm. Yeah, if Trump win, I'm not an expert, but it sounds like RFK is going to be having some type of a big role, and that's exciting to me to see him, especially with his new
Yeah,
mission of making America healthy.
yeah.
It's awesome.
He's gonna have a huge impact. I am a little concerned because he's still on the side that he wants to fix the regulation. He doesn't want to get rid of it. And let's give him the benefit of the doubt and says he fixed every regulation. Then it's only 20 years till they slowly chip away at it again, and we need another one of them.
Yeah,
So I mean,
that
someone's
was
got
about
to.
it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be grateful for it. I am, but I'm also concerned. Like, just like when they set up the Constitution is really good. Is small government at the federal level, like slightly larger government at the state level, great system, right? How old's America? Help me out.
400, just about 400.
400 years
No,
old.
that's the Rome. 1865 was some big date.
Neither of us know when the United States started, but it's like 250
Got it.
years old. It's went from like a very small government with all the written into the Constitution, and look what they've turned it into. Like it will be corrupted slowly and surely as long as it's there. As long as it's expected that the government's going to tell you what's healthy and what's not healthy. He may fix it for a little bit, but I don't know if it'll stay.
It is close to 400 years old. Also, the date I brought up was an important date.
1776.
1865 was the end of the Civil War.
Hmm.
13th Amendment.
Hey, at least you had
I
a
had
real
a date.
date.
I was like, that date is something.
Better than me. I've not been good. Like I love history. I do not do well with just memorizing years.
Yeah, but I mean, genuinely, that's not the important thing. It's more the content. It helps to be able to refer when you can think of the specific years and timeline. Anyways, another tangent that we probably won't go on. Good episode.
Episode 5 in the books.
Yeah. Can't